I'm Chantal Roberts, and I'm a nationally recognized insurance thought leader regarding claims handling practices and procedures. In week 26, I discussed the art of adjusting slip and fall accidents. In week 22, we discussed gym liability claims. And in week 16, I talked about how to adjust a liability claim in general. This week, I'm getting a little bit more specific, and we're going to discuss how to adjust a liability claim with a catastrophic bodily injury. Thankfully, most of the claims that an adjuster receives can be settled relatively quickly. However, there are times when the claimant sustains severe injuries, which could take years to heal if they heal at all. And the claimant could be permanently disabled, for example. And to make matters worse, most claimants don't understand the difference between liability insurance and health insurance. And some don't even have health insurance, which means that it is very hard for them to get the treatment that they need because they lack the funding to do so. So first, let's talk a little bit about the differences between a liability insurer and a health carrier. So a liability insurer has a fiduciary duty to their first party insured, and a claimant in this particular instance is a third party person who is on the policy or who has filed a claim on the policy. So there's not necessarily a fiduciary duty to handle these claims or pay these medical invoices as they come in. Now, the health carrier, on the other hand, is a first party coverage, and they will pay claims as they come in. They will pay the medical invoices as they come in. And of course, I am speaking in very general, overbroad manners. So take everything that I say with a grain of salt. There is health insurance that is with our like automobiles and businesses, for example. That's going to be your MedPay or your PIP, the personal injury protection, or workers' compensation. That's usually something that gets paid as a bill comes in. But again, I'm not going to talk about those because yeah, that'll just kind of confuse us, and we'll be here for hours talking about that. Now, a liability claim will pay for what the insured becomes legally liable for. So if the insured has done something or has failed to do something that creates an injury, then that's when the liability carrier will pay for the injury or the damage to the third party. But the carrier wants to protect its insured, so the carrier won't pay until the claim is settled. And that means that the claimant has to be finished with treatment. So how do you do this if a claimant is never going to heal, like if they have permanent disability, or if it happens to be a very serious injury that will take years to heal? There's other ways. Going back to the health carrier, the insured, which would be the claimant in that particular instance, can treat for as long as the plan allows. I know that some some health carriers will allow 26 mental health visits per year, for example. Liability is going to be limited by statute. So again, to sum up, a liability claim, your medical invoices can accumulate for years without any kind of payment, and the medical practitioners, of course, don't like that. They have bills to pay too. They have staff that they need to pay. And so the medical doctors, the practitioners, the hospitals will begin to place liens on the claimant's property, like houses and things, so that they make sure that they get paid. So here's how the liability adjuster can help. If liability is clear, The adjuster can make an advanced payment, and this helps the claimant pay for medical invoices as they come in. Now, to be sure, I'm talking about a really large loss, huge medical expenses. I'm not talking about an advance pay every time an invoice comes in. And I'm not talking about invoices for just your standard whiplash kind of fender bender thing. I'm talking about being airlifted from the scene, having several surgeries, not being able to work for 6 months, 9 months, a year, something like that. And so this is something that you want to try to help your claimant in order to keep control over the claim. Because if you remember, we're talking about a person who is unable to work. They've got a huge amount of medical bills. They are in pain. So they don't have any money to buy groceries, to pay the electric bill, to pay the water bill, to buy clothes for their kids who have just like sprung up 2 feet overnight. So there are things that we can do as adjusters to help claimants. And adjusters have been told for whatever reason they can't offer an advance pay for medical invoices to claimants, and that's absolutely wrong. They can and they should pay in advance if it's advantageous, again, to control costs. And having said this, offering a settlement to a claimant almost never happens. What you would need to do if you are a claimant and you want to get that advance pay, you will need to give the adjuster the medical invoices in the records or the reports. Usually the hospital, the doctors from the hospital, the ambulance or the helicopter, something like that will be the first bills to start arriving. If you know that it's going to be a long recovery time, get your wage information from your um, employer. You might also want to turn in your W-2s or your W-9s so that the adjuster can verify that that's actually what you make. So let me give you a real quick example so that we can run down this. Mike was hit by an 18-wheeler. His whole left side of his body was absolutely crushed. He was airlifted to the hospital. He had a 2-week intensive care unit stay and several pins put in his body. He's going to need more surgeries. The ER bill just right off the bat is $6,000, or yeah, $60,000, excuse me, $60,000. The doctor's invoices with all of the surgeries is about $30,000. MRIs and x-rays are about $10,000. Missed wages for 2 weeks while he was in ICU is about $2,000. So already we've got a medical and lost wages totaling $102,000. And Mike is going to need, like we said, more surgeries, months of physical therapy. He's going to miss more work and he's going to have more doctor's appointments. So there's a lot of pain and suffering involved here too. And again, liability is going to be clear. Our insured definitely did hit Mike. So there's no question in regards to that. We've got limits of like $1 million. So this isn't going to breach our limits or anything like that. So the adjuster should discuss an advance pay with her supervisor for $102,000. This helps keep the goodwill of Mike. Mike will, of course, need to sign an advance pay receipt for the $102,000 that he receives. And that amount will be deducted from the final settlement that Mike gets. But I think Mike would appreciate the income because he's able to pay the hospital, the doctors, and the bills, and able to pay for groceries and his electric and his water. So he's not having to go to an attorney who can pay for these sorts of things. And then you've kind of lost control of your claim. Now, you may be wondering why health carriers wouldn't pay for this if health carriers are supposed to be paying for first party kind of losses, such as Mike. They could, and they may. Usually they don't want to because it's a car accident or something to that effect. It's a slip and fall or whatever. And they don't want to have to go through this subrogation. Remember that for an adjuster, it's bad faith to force Mike to file on his own insurance. The last thing that you'll want to take a look at is if this happened to be a smaller limits case. Let's just say, for example, it was an automobile to an automobile, and Mike still had this $102,000 uh, insurance or medical payments and lost wage bill. But let's say our policy limits, for example, were $25,000. He's way exceeded this amount. And even if coverage or liability isn't known, the adjuster needs to sit back and look at this and go, even if I took 50% liability, that's still 50,000 or 51,000 that I would owe Mike. So do I go ahead and settle now, give the policy limits and cut my losses because there's nothing more I can do for Mike because I've meet my policy limits? Or is this, do I want to continue to fight it? And that's just something that, you're going to have to think about and take it case by case. However, this week I have discussed how to adjust claims when you have a high medical invoice and bodily injury, catastrophic bodily injury. It's possible to maintain control of the file and have a partial settlement when it benefits everybody in the claim. However, every claim is different, and every insurer has different protocols for handling losses. This being in the litigated world that we are in, see below for some legalese. Few claims go to a jury, and picking the expert who has been deposed the most or who has gone to trial the most may not be the correct expert. Failing to have a second set of eyes on a claim in order to save some expenses isn't always the best way to resolve a loss. As an expert witness and former claims adjuster, I'm sharing my experiences on the art of adjusting. Thank you for watching. I appreciate your time.